everybody. Welcome to Formula Facts, episode 5. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm Jack Lake.
I'm Destinee Day.
A lot to talk about today. We got to review what happened in Japan, and then we got to go forward and talk about what we think should happen in Bahrain and give our predictions and stuff like that. First, let's get into Suzuka. It was a good, I got my Red Bull shirt on. I was a happy camper. While we were practicing for what we're going to say today, I was singing my Max Verstappen song. I'm a very happy person right now. What'd you think?
I did not expect a Max win, but he pulled a crazy lap out in quali when no one expected it. Everyone thought it was going to be a McLaren front row, so Max pulling one out at the last second is very Max. That's a very Max move, but also surprised everybody too, so I loved every single second of that.
Yeah, it was kind of cool. When I was watching qualifying, I'm like, oh, okay, I guess it's going to be, another McLaren. Here we go. We'll see it again. Front row lockout. And then, I guess the time was out on the clock. And then all of a sudden I hear, and here comes Max Verstappen. I'm like, oh, okay, let's see what happens. And he sets an all-time fastest lap on the track. He's got pole position. And I think it's just something that Max and Red Bull both really needed right at the start of the season so far.
Yeah, I mean, especially on a weekend that was supposed to be so dominated by Yuki, it's very Red Bull that it's actually while it's also Yuki's big day, here comes Max with the pure grit and determination for a win.
Yeah, and then I think when we look, I guess we might go into a little bit more in a second, talk about Yuki, right? But Yuki did qualify 15, right? And then he finished in 12th. So there still is a little bit of progress there. And I know it's something that we will be expecting more out of him for sure, because he is in that very highly regarded Red Bull seat. But you look back at Liam Lawson, right? He was getting last in every race, but except for the times that everybody else DNF'd, right, or got disqualified, so he had to get moved up. So, good for Yuki at least, getting 12th. It is his home race. There must be a lot of pressure, right, going into that Red Bull car, which we know is hard to drive.
And not to defend Liam Lawson, because I am not a Liam Lawson fan, but he does perform fairly well in the RB. He did fairly well last season when he was in the RB, right? It's just to show how big of a difference there is between the RB and the actual Red Bull car.
And a little bit of drama, right, on the right when we've seen the starting grid, right? It was Liam Lawson 14, and right next to him is Yuki in 15th, right? Isn't that kind of cool? Obviously, we know Yuki won, right, because he got ahead of him. For the final results of the race, but they were when they do that before the race starts, they're showing right the whole grid. And I'm looking at them oh, that's so cool. That is so cool.
Yeah, I mean, I think Suzuka is such an interesting track too. When they were doing all the press with the drivers afterwards, the drivers kind of seemed to voice how unhappy they were with it. I think it was Carlos Sainz that even said it's like a second Monaco, right? You have to qualify well. And even then there's because after you quali, there's very little passing that's able to happen on the Suzuka circuit. So how you qualify is usually how this ends up playing out. So I thought it was a slightly boring race compared to the last 3 that we've had. It was fine. I thought it was fine. I was happy Max won. It was fine.
Yeah, I mean, if there was one race that was going to be boring, I'll take it when Max is going to win, because that alone was keeping me on the edge of my seat the whole time I was watching it. But I think it was just something really interesting to see with the whole pit stop dynamic that was going on, and then some cars that were staying out, and then some cars that had different tire strategies, and that alone was, and then it was also interesting to see what the cars are doing right in those top 3 spots between Max, Lando, and Oscar. I mean, Leclerc was pretty far off, right, if you think about it in comparison. I think it just shows Max is pretty fast, right, when he can get out there in that clean air and get out in front. But it was weird. It was his time, Lando's time to Max kept getting shorter, and then they would tell Max to push again, and then it would go far. I think it shows that Max, if he chose to go push right that whole race, he could have gone far ahead. He was just trying to conserve his tires, conserve the car. But I think Max just had the pace and his car had the power there that whole race. I mean, there was no question really if the problem would be there.
Yeah. I mean, McLaren looked about a mess, especially there at the end. it looks like they're going back into the two driver promote, like they're back on their bullshit.
I mean, yeah, I think you totally have a point, right? It shows that I don't think McLaren knows what they're doing, right? And I think I don't know.
They do, but they don't.
Yeah, it's just that they're driving out there like it's two different teams. It's almost like they're going against each other, right? There could have been so much more strategy there, right, to try to get in front of Max. Like the biggest move they tried to make the whole time was when they pulled that little fake pit stop thing, which tricked nobody, you know. So there just wasn't a lot of strategy there, and I think it goes back to last year. We saw it in Drive to Survive when it came out that they didn't know who to put right in that number one spot. And it looks like they still haven't figured it out, right? Because we saw that Oscar's saying that he has pace, and Lando obviously doesn't want Oscar to go in front of him, right? But it was pretty obvious that Piastri had pace that whole race.
Yeah, very much so. And like Lando's leading the drivers' championship right now. Like, of course he doesn't want Oscar on, like, you know, to go ahead of him. Like that'll kill him on the points. I don't know. I just felt.
Yeah, you can't blame the drivers, but at some point, like the team itself, right, has to start making these decisions. Like no one's saying they're easy decisions, but they have to be made. Otherwise, eventually there's going to be some problems. I think some other things that happened at Suzuka that we didn't talk about, we didn't prep on because I forgot to mention, was the when Max and Lando both came out of their pit stop.
Oh, the lawnmower comment.
Oh yeah.
That was wild. And like I don't blame Lando for wanting to get in there, right? Like, but also it was kind of totally reckless with such an expensive piece of equipment. He totally could have wrecked them both out. Like that could have happened.
And it was pretty obvious that like Max did nothing wrong. Max was just driving out, and Lando's there like he's pushing me off, and they have like the overhead view, and you could see Max like he would have done the same exact thing if Lando wasn't there. He just came out and was driving straight. Lando's the one who tried to go around on the grass, and I think Max had a funny comment after the race. And he said it to Lando. He's like, I think Lando realized that the grass was getting a little bit too long, and then Lando was like, joking right back at him. He was like, "Yeah, I thought I needed to cut the grass there." So it's funny that they could they resolved the issue, but it was still like nonetheless that was like a whole big thing because you're wondering, who knows what the FIA is going to do. So yeah.
Well, I mean that's the other side of strategy in Formula One, right? It's politics. Like that's the other side that we don't ever get to see on TV is that that battle with the rule book and putting that up for review to the FIA, which of course they were like, no. But sometimes you can get one over on someone else and get them a time penalty, and then that moves you up in the race and get you more points. So it's all part of the game.
Yeah, and then let's see there's another big bullet point right from the Suzuka Japanese GP would definitely be Kimi Antonelli, right, getting the fastest lap.
Yes. I love Kimi Antonelli. The more he races, the more I love him. He's got a lot of potential, that kid. I am so excited to see what the rest of the season is going to bring for him because he is just straight fearless. And that's awesome to see out of Mercedes because it's been kind of sad to see them be down the last few years, Yeah,
I think it's something pretty cool to see. And I was never really a Mercedes fan at all, and I really wasn't even a George fan. But even like Russell has been like really. I've grown more favor to him over he's being less annoying. I'm trying to be nice about it. Don't sugarcoat it, right? He's been less annoying, and I always like Kimi. I think Kimi's a great driver. And I think it's really paying off, right? They got the rookie driver and it's paying off, which a lot of teams haven't been seeing. But some teams have, but some teams haven't. But it's really working out well for Mercedes. And in the long run, I mean, they're going to be a good combo, I think.
I agree. I think they're going to be an excellent combo. And like, look at Mercedes right now, right? Like both of their drivers still finished above Lewis Hamilton in the Ferrari, right? Which has got to feel good to consistently be doing that right now. I mean, Lewis is struggling in the Ferrari. If we're going to just move on down the line, like Leclerc finished above both Mercedes drivers, and then it was Hamilton. You saw more back and forth on the radio with the Ferrari engineers trying to talk to Lewis, and then Lewis, kind of trying to explain to him what he wants to hear, what he finds useless, what he doesn't. He's still learning, and it's kind of interesting to observe such a big learning curve out of Lewis Hamilton.
Yeah, I think that's one thing out of Lewis has been really interesting, has been like his struggle, right, with the Ferrari team. You can tell like how frustrated he is when he's talking on the team radio to them. This week, Formula One's going to be in Bahrain, right? That's a big race, right? It's been on the calendar for a while. It's a pretty famous race. What can we expect from that track?
Yeah, I mean, it's often where preseason testing is held. So we've already kind of seen the cars perform on track, but it's known for its super abrasive track, right? It's something that really wears down the tires, and drivers really struggle with grip, right? But also there are high speed winds that come with the Bahrain race because you're racing in the desert. Track temperatures are a major issue here because it's hot in the desert in the daytime, and then it's cold in the desert in the nighttime. So that's going to be something that everyone's going to be looking out for. This is also the location of the very famous Romain Grosjean Haas car explosion, where he miraculously survived that car wreck, immortalized forever in Drive to Survive. And this is also the second track that hosted a back-to-back race when COVID-19 hit. So first they raced the Bahrain track, and then they raced what they called the Sakhir track, which is the outer loop of this racetrack. So they held 2 race events in 2020.
Oh, I didn't know that. That's a good Formula fact.
And it was a daytime race until 2014, and then they switched it to a nighttime race for their 10th anniversary, and then it's just stayed a nighttime race. And then also it had to be canceled in 2011 because of political unrest, and like people were maybe shooting missiles in the kingdom. So like not good. They had to cancel it.
Not good for you.
Yeah. Yeah. But yeah.
Well, there's a couple Formula facts for you guys. Let's get into, I think would be a little bit interesting to talk about, is how we've already seen these specific cars at Bahrain already in 2025 in preseason testing. So let's talk about what happened there. In day 1, right, we saw Lando Norris get the fastest on the track, minute 30 and 4/10. Right, then day 2, there was like the thing we all heard in the news, right, was Carlos Sainz getting the fastest lap of preseason testing in general. We all know that didn't turn out too well for the first couple races of the season, with a minute 29 and 3/10. And then day 3, George Russell was on top. So, right, so far what we saw in preseason testing is that there wasn't like one specific driver that dominated, right? But there was a lot of drivers that did many, many laps in preseason testing. So that hopefully these drivers will be used to this track. They'll know what to do. They'll have a good strategy going into it. And like you said, this is a really famous track. And I'm sure this is one that the drivers talk about a lot and that they should be ready to go. But I think it's good that we already know, we have an idea of how these cars might perform, right? Because we already saw what happened.
Yeah. I mean, preseason testing isn't technically a race, right? But it is indicative of car performance right out the gate. So they've also gone through 4 Grand Prix at this point. They know a lot. They're going to know what changes need to be made to their setup, right? Kind of what Ferrari's looking at, kind of what Red Bull's looking at, as far as like upgrades that need to be made to their car. But I think it'll be an interesting one. I'm interested to see how the rookies perform at Bahrain when it's not preseason testing. And especially Isaac Hadjar and Kimi Antonelli. And also really looking forward to seeing what Yuki does without all the pressures of his home race on him. I think he'll do better.
Yeah, I think it should be definitely pretty exciting. We can take a look into what happened last year in Bahrain in 2024. Max Verstappen and Sergio Perez with the 1-2 finish, which is, I think, pretty impressive. We saw Red Bull, 1-2, which was something right now sounds like unheard of in 2025. But that was pretty cool. The fastest lap on Bahrain, right, in 2024 was Max Verstappen with 1 minute and 32, which Carlos Sainz was like 3 seconds ahead of right in preseason testing. So it should be a pretty exciting race.
Yeah, I think it'll be good.
So let's get into our predictions. I think I'm definitely going to put Max Verstappen in my number one again. Like I said, I'm a Red Bull fan. I'm sure I'm having Max at number one for most of the races so far this year. We've seen him have previous success in Bahrain. After seeing what he did in Japan, that was extremely impressive. I think if he can pull out another impressive qualifying, I'd like to see what Red Bull will do, especially with Yuki. But I think Max is going to be my number one. After seeing how George Russell has been performing, and like I said, he's been growing on me, I'm going to definitely put George Russell as my number two. And he had that amazing day right in day 3 of preseason testing at Bahrain. And then in my number 3 spot, I'm going to go with something a little crazy here. I was debating between maybe Piastri or Norris, but I think I'm going to put Kimi Antonelli, right, getting his first podium in F1. And then we're going to have a 2-3 for Mercedes. So to sum it all up for you, I got Max Verstappen as my number 1, George Russell as number 2, and Kimi Antonelli, first podium in F1 at P3.
Oscar 1.
Okay.
Max 2. Lando 3.
Okay.
I think that's what's going to happen.
I like your prediction.
I want Kimmy so badly. I want your predictions to be right so badly. Like that's why I'm going like with a different route, because like I agree with you. Like that's what I would have picked for a podium, but we can't pick the same thing.
That's definitely something that could happen, yeah.
Yeah, that's more realistic, right?
Yeah, I think I'm going to do the more hopeful one because I don't want to put McLaren anywhere in my top 3. So I stick them out of it.
We have to get better at these, right?
It's actually getting pretty embarrassing.
Yeah.
Thank you for watching for Formula Facts episode 5. I think we had a pretty nice episode. We got to talk about what happened in Japan. Got our predictions in for Bahrain. Hopefully it'll be an exciting race, because we didn't have that much excitement in Japan. But we'll see what happens when we come back next week. So thanks for watching us. I'm Jack Like.
I'm Destinee Day.